How many heroes?
Blue Demon.
How many heroes have you found out there?
Well, we have found many heroes. I found 1,000 heroes, but my father said that Deng Xiaoping freed 1 billion people, and so he looked at that and said only 1,000.
So we have a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do, but there are a lot of very good entrepreneurs here in this country, in this city, and they're going to do some extraordinary things.
Come on, Santos.
Okay.
Please, join me here.
Oh.
Wow. It was a long trip.
It was a long trip. We've had to do a lot of heroic acts, but we're here and now we're really excited about what we're going to be doing.
But it was worth it.
Absolutely worth it.
Great, great. Well,
for all you entrepreneurs out there, it's worth it.
This is it. Are you ready to reveal our secret identities?
I am Blue Santos. Blue Demon.
Okay, Santos. Let's get it on.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Rogelio! It's you!
I never knew him. You were here. Come on. Okay.
All this time. Oh my God.
Well, good to know it was you because I was getting worried. Well, let's get this show started.
Absolutely.
Tim, just to set context, in the context of what has been going on recently, November 8th, what's going on? Do you see distortions in the market? What are the consequences for entrepreneurs and for the innovation of this world?
Well, I actually think that if you're a great entrepreneur, you can start your business anywhere and make anything happen. So that whether they build a wall or a bridge, I actually think that this country, I can see it, has this amazing wave of energy that's starting. And I've seen it in other places. I've seen it in China. I've seen it in India, where it was just starting. And then the wave just built and built and built. And I think it's very important for entrepreneurs to think globally. And I don't like isolationist. I think you want to be open to the world. And also, as an entrepreneur, I think it's really important to not just think in terms of selling to people in Monterrey or in Mexico, but in todo el mundo. And if you sell to everyone around the world, you have the opportunity to take your brilliant ideas and spread them throughout the world faster than they ever did before.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you live in Silicon Valley, and it's a model of an ecosystem that everyone wants to become a kind of a Silicon Valley. In your opinion, what are the key ingredients of a thriving ecosystem?
So it's great you have two very good technical universities here, because I think that's one of the key elements. And I know that it's a great business climate in Mexico, because people in Mexico have always been good at negocios. Yeah. They've always been good businessmen and women. But if you can put really interesting technology together with really interesting business, you can create the beginning of an ecosystem. And I think that ecosystem can be helped by events like this. This is an extraordinary event, and it brings people together, and they bang ideas against each other, and you can take the capital and apply it to the entrepreneur. You can get entrepreneurs to talk to each other about the problems that they're having. And in the Silicon Valley, that's something that we've been able to do for years. But we're adding even more to our ecosystem every day, because we're looking for new ways for people to connect in different ways so that their ideas can grow and spread and evolve. And I think everything evolves more if you have more people talking to each other.
I agree. So networks are important.
Yeah, networks are very important. So what you're doing here is fabulous for the country.
I know. Well, this is
After all, it is damn on.
only the people in this room know, okay? Not everyone else out there.
Yeah, no tweeting about the blue damn on thing. Although Santo, it's okay.
Yeah, Santos. He's a global figure now. So what's happening now in Silicon Valley? How is the industry evolving? What are the trends, and how is Silicon Valley disrupting itself?
Well, I think there's some really interesting new technologies that are coming that are where we're seeing entrepreneurs coming to us with new kind of revolutionary technologies that are changing the way everybody operates. And for instance, Uber was a new technology allowing everyone around to communicate with everyone else around so that the driver could get the passenger wherever they were in the most efficient, effective way possible. Well, that kind of a network is spreading into every other category of business. It's just like when the internet came, it started to spread through every other kind of business. And when Bitcoin came, it's starting to spread through various businesses. The blockchain is changing everything from finance to government to healthcare. And so I think that it's the new technologies that help us drive ourselves into sort of the next level. Some of our challenges have been that the public market is so heavily regulated now that it's not worth it for a company that's 50 million in value or 100 million in value to go public now. So there's this, and it's not really worth it until they're worth about $5 or $10 billion. So there's this area between 100 million in value and 5 billion in value where there's not much liquidity and there's no market for those companies. So there'll be a lot of acquisitions, but I also think there will start to be more of a private market for those. And I think that's kind of a neat opportunity. When there's change, that's something I didn't say about the new election and our new president. When there's change, a really good entrepreneur figures out how to take advantage of that change and build their business. And I think since we're going to have serious change in the United States, and the United States is a very big market, there are some big opportunities for entrepreneurs. So, yeah, long-winded answer to your question.
That's fine. Well, you've been in the venture industry. Well, your family has been in the venture industry for many years, for kind of the creators of the industry. How is this industry evolving right now? Is it getting
it's interesting. My grandfather started the venture capital business in the Silicon Valley, and it evolved, and my father was a real pioneer in the venture capital business. When I got into the venture business, there were quite a few venture funds, but I still remember no one knew what a venture capitalist was, and I remember knocking on doors of companies, any new construction where there was a couple of companies called Something Software. I would knock on their door and see, and I remember getting shooed out by a receptionist at Intuit. I had an opportunity to invest in Intuit if they had only let me in, but she said, no, out, no solicitors. I said, but I have the money. I'm thinking of going the other way. Out. So I might have been able to back Intuit if that hadn't been the case. But anyway, now it's evolved in a lot of different ways. We've gone through some serious changes. One of the biggest changes was that venture capital went global. And I'm happy to say that we've been very big participants in that globalization of venture capital through Draper Venture Network and some of our investments overseas. And I think that the next step is one where the entrepreneur and the money get closer together. And that will be, there will be some major changes in venture capital going forward. I don't think they've actually happened yet, but I think companies like AngelList and eShares and the crowdfunding companies and a number of others, are making it so that that entrepreneurs can get to the money more directly and not through us as a filter or a filter. I think that that our jobs will evolve too, where we will become more of a brand, more of putting. I'm thinking putting Draper or Dalus on a company will be like putting Chiquita on a banana, or Sunkissed on an orange. It'll feel like, oh, okay, that's something that has that quality and can be invested in. So I think that may be more of our role, and over time, and we'll continue to advise and consult and help build these companies. But it will be a little different.
I know. Do you see Silicon Valley groups investing abroad?
We are.
Or are they too centric on that this is where everything happens and
we are, because I know that no matter how good a school Stanford is or Berkeley or UCLA or USC, having a small radius is always a bad idea, because I think what happens is if you fly somewhere else, you see a window on some other population and what they're thinking. So even if you only funded companies from the Silicon Valley, you should be out there looking at all the other companies around. And if you are, of course, you'll fund those companies too. Yeah. I think the other venture capitalists don't travel to Mexico at their own peril. Because I think we're going to all benefit big because we do travel and we do go and we see interesting companies in a lot of different places.
Yeah. And why DVN?
So DVN is the Draper Venture Network, and it's a network of venture capitalists all over the world. I should ask you to say that. And the benefits, I think, to having a network of venture capitalists is that you get a little bit more of a window on some of the other things that are happening around the world in entrepreneurship, and you can keep an eye on, if I'm thinking about making an investment in an AI company here, I might find 15 more throughout the network by just doing a blast and saying, hey, anybody seen anything like this? And then we all might look and say, oh, well, this one in one case we did this. This one in Bulgaria looks like a really good opportunity. Why don't we do that one? And so having people in lots of different places around the world allows us to be a magnet for all the entrepreneurs from all over the world. We would miss out on 95% of the population if we just focused on the U.S. or just the Silicon Valley. So I think it's good because of that, and also I think we get bulk because we can bring in 600 or 700 companies all together in one place, and then if you're the VP of Business Development of Procter & Gamble or IBM or HP or Google or Facebook or Twitter, you're going to want to be there because you get an opportunity to see a window on 600 different startups. So I think there are lots of really interesting advantages to being a part of a network.
Well, it is one of the few, or if not the only, network that is being created from independent funds on a global scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit more about trends. And where do you see the future happening now? You said that this is so real now that it is just a matter of time. I remember using Uber like 6-7 years ago in New York City, in San Francisco, when no one else in Mexico, very few people in Mexico, would have even understand that a technology of that dimension will change things.
Well, what's really interesting is that I've just met 20 or so, about 20 entrepreneurs while I've been here, and they may be changing everything that we see. So it doesn't have to go from there to here. It can go from here to there, because there are some second order ideas that I saw today that were quite extraordinary and could actually have a big impact on the world as it is. So entrepreneurs often drive what it is that we all get to experience, and if they run their business well and they create products that delight and surprise us, we'll use those products. So with that said, I'm excited about artificial intelligence. I think it's going to have a really big impact on all of us. I think we're going to go from self-driving cars to cars that don't even have any people in them, and then we're not going to have to drive anymore, and we'll be much more fun and social. And I think that is also going to take a lot of the cars off the road, and that's going to have other effects. So I think there are opportunities for entrepreneurs to think about all those things in the future too. And maybe some of the cars start flying, and then there's traffic up there that has to be monitored or watched over or made safe. Lots of really interesting opportunities in transportation and moving us all around. I think there are also great, amazing opportunities in finance, in fintech, in venture capital, in investment banking, and in banking. I think, and we've got new technologies in Bitcoin and the blockchain that can pervade the world. And if you're not a real confident believer in your own country's currency, it's a great way to do business. And it's so easy. So I think it's interesting, the wealth of societies. Societies go wealthy and then sort of plateau, and wealthy and then plateau. And each move toward wealth had to do with liquidity in a marketplace. So when we went from shells to gold, that was a liquidity improvement because gold was lighter, shells were hit. And we went from gold to the promise of gold. That was a huge jump. And then we went from the promise of gold to the promise of paying you back somehow, or the good faith and credit of your government or whatever. Each of those established a new level of liquidity and made society richer. Well, I think Bitcoin is that kind of thing. And so it's going to move money much faster. It already does across borders, wherever it needs to go, and it's also a great sort of hedge against the idea that if your government comes down hard on you and somehow your currency is no longer worth anything, you have your Bitcoin, and it's kind of a nice hedge. So that's another technology I think is really exciting. And then I think in healthcare, there's some major breakthroughs happening in genomics of all kinds, and in using computers to design drugs to attack different diseases. I think those are big opportunities. But maybe the biggest opportunity is the idea that you can keep all your data up there in the cloud. So your DNA, your blood test, your Fitbit results, your blood pressure, all that stuff is up there. And then that data can then be analyzed, and it can say to you, oh, you should never take this drug because you're this type of person, and that drug has not been effective for this type of person, and it's not safe for that type of person. That's going to completely transform the drug industry. I think they're going to have a little trouble on their hands.
Do you think death will be cured?
Yeah, I think we got a shot at it. It's really interesting. Every 3 or 4 years, we get a free year. So if you live 3 or 4 years, you got a year free. And eventually those lines start to cross where we might live almost indefinitely. And all that stem cell work, I think, is going to be pretty interesting. I think we keep living longer. That's going to be an opportunity, but as people get older, they're not early adopters, so it's hard to build a business around the graying of the laggards, the graying of the population. So,
but if we live longer, then what we will have to look for other
challenges, planets. Yeah, we got to move. That'll be a way they ship off all the old people to Mars. It'll be like, here, oh, I'm sorry, Santo, you've gotten too old. Yeah, you're going to go to Mars now. And it'll be kind of a great adventure for us. And maybe we'll age slower there.
Well, we don't know. But Elon is working on that.
Elon's working on it. So are all those brilliant engineers. So I think it's going to be a really exciting time for us in space. I didn't mention space. Huge opportunities in space.
Well, you talk about AI, artificial intelligence, and that it doesn't worry you. But does it worry that it will change how you invest, that it will replace venture investors?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not worried about that, but I'm kind of excited by it because then I can, if I put enough information into the AI, then I can just sort of, you know, the entrepreneur can put their information into the AI and we can just have it go churn, and then the result, it would be like going through the airport and getting the green light or the red light.
Okay.
You just like, oh, you push it and then, oh, okay, here.
Go in.
No problem, yeah.
You don't even have to
no
do
negotiation,
pitch.
nothing.
No pitch.
No pitch, no negotiation.
Okay, well.
And actually, as they put on these brain devices around your head, they read your thoughts. So you can figure out if there's a good mesh between the investor and the entrepreneur through reading thoughts and then connecting the two.
Okay.
You can actually, I'm through another guy, I'm an investor in something called Throw Trucks with Your Mind. And it's you put this halo on your head, and you can do a couple of things. You can control the cursor, back, forth, up, down. And you can, if you concentrate harder than the other guy who's going, your truck will jump on top of their truck.
Okay.
Quite extraordinary. So, so we're going to go well beyond AI.
Well, similar to
So
this.
use your big imaginations, entrepreneurs. Anything is possible.
I know, but it has to be backed by science and by thinking big, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of things do happen. First, there's a breakthrough in science. Well, first there's a science fiction author that comes up with something wild. Then there's a breakthrough in science, and then about 10 or 15 years later, there's an entrepreneur who says, I can take that breakthrough and turn it into this market and become a big business. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, taking that science or new trend or whatever and just improving the way customers feel or the way the world works or whatever. And it's a good system.
The iPhone is a great example of that.
Yeah, well, the iPod was really interesting. He was so smart. He said, I just want one button. There were 20 companies that had iPods like creatures that were much more efficient, much more effective, and had better memory than the iPod did. But he made it so that it was a fun thing to have. It was one button, it was easy, you just push that button, you roll that thing around. That was the engineer, that was the negotiation they had. He kept saying one button, one button, one button. And they said, okay, how about one button and a little, a little dial. So if you surprise, I want to use these words again, surprise, sorpresa, and delight. I don't know the word for delight. Make super feliz.
Sorprende y deleita.
Okay, sorprende deleita.
And deleita, yes.
Yeah, think in terms of deleita, your customer. Because if you do that, you will win, even if, as Steve Jobs learned, even if your product was not as advanced as the other ones, he deleita his...
Deleita,
Yeah.
okay. How many deals do you see a year?
Well, we did a calculation. It's somewhere between 6,000 and 20,000 deals a year.
Wow.
And we have a really good system for filtering through those. But we also fund a lot of companies too, so it's not like it is very possible to get funding from us.
Yes.
But a lot of the deals we see are things we've already seen before that don't seem like that they're going to be a big enough market, or businesses that, and maybe entrepreneurs that aren't ambitious enough, and I recommend all of you people in Mexico become seriously ambitious. And I think, or we say, well, this is sort of old news, old technology, and a little too obvious. So we're looking for things that are not obvious.
And how do you see that that there is something that, because one of the big challenges right now is that with a lifespan of organizations shortening substantially, with an environment that is changing so fast that we don't know exactly what are the skills or the technologies that will enable how we operate as human beings.
So here's the great thing about our business. I can fail 60% of the time and still be a huge success as a venture capitalist. So the way I look at it is, a lot of venture capitalists say what could go wrong, and what's bad about this business, or what seems a little off, or what's crazy, or whatever. And I'm looking for what's crazy, what could go right, and if this is successful, how big does it get? Mm-hmm. And those are the questions I'm asking. And because it doesn't matter if I'm backing a taco stand, or I'm backing the the next galaxy discovery. They probably have a roughly equal chance of succeeding. So for me, I might as well back the one that really could move humanity forward a lot faster. I mean, the taco stand might. There are a lot of things you could do with a taco stand. But I would go for the change the galaxy kind of thing over the very simple thing that other people can do too. Oh, you as entrepreneurs have to be uniquely qualified and kind of the only one who can make this happen. It can't be something that if you do it, and you tell your friend about it, and he can do it too. That's not as good a business. You want a business that you can do and you're uniquely qualified to do it.
To be uniquely qualified, it's the circumstance, the technology, the network. There are many components.
And your interest and your passion and your excitement for the business, and do you want? And you're the one who wants to dedicate your life to it, or make something interesting happen. And so several of you, I'm sure, I asked this question: why are you doing this? And I usually ask it that way because I want the entrepreneur to really think through, wait, maybe I'm just doing this because I wanted to, impress some girl that I knew. Or I'm only doing this because somebody's told me I might be able to make money doing it. Those aren't, well, the girl thing might be a good reason, but the other one, not so much. You really need to do it. The ones that I like to back are the ones that say, because I told the CEO of my last company this. It should have been, we should have done it there. I told him over and over and over, and finally I just said, I quit, and I'm going to go start this. And I'm going to compete with you. And he said, good luck. He said, yeah, good luck. And I went off and did it. And that's the person I would like to back.
Yeah, that's important. So with that many deals, and this is a hard question for you, but what has been your best personal deal?
So I think my best personal deal, I'll tell you two stories. One was these two 26-year-old kids came into my office, and they pitched one business, and we were walking them out the door, and they said, well, I have another idea, and it's web-based email. And we said, well, tell us about that web-based email. And they told us we can actually make it so cheaply we can give it away for free. And then I was waiting because I was thinking, well, yeah, but how are you going to make money? And they said, well, we were really not sure. And it was that moment I thought, well, let's just give them some money and see what happens. And they made it, and then the engineer said, or the CTO said, it's up. And I said, what's up? And he said, oh, web-based email, you can do it anywhere. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. Well, so how are you going to spread this? And he and the other founders said, well, we'll put it on billboards and TV and radio, and that's how we're going to spread it. And I said, TV, we gave you like enough money for a nanosecond of TV time. and billboards are expensive. All this stuff's expensive. And I said, can't you just get it out to all those guys who are on this web? And they said, oh no, that would be spamming. And then I said, well, you're giving this away for free. If I send you an email, and you send somebody else an email, and they send somebody else an email, we're going to reach everybody. And I said, can we just put a message at the bottom of everybody's screen that says, P.S., I love you, get your free email at Hotmail. Hotmail is the name of the company. And they said, of all the I mean, I saw it in their eyes. They didn't actually say it, but it was, of all the investors we could have had, why did we have this one? and I kept pounding and pounding and pounding. And finally they said, okay, we'll try it. No P.S. I love you. So then they tried it, and it took off. 11 million users in 18 months. The company was running out of money really fast because we kept having to add servers. And it was crazy times, and then, we had a couple of bidders, and Microsoft finally bought it. So that was the beginning of viral marketing, and then that was the reason I got all excited when I heard that these two guys had left Kazaa, and they were starting something new, and I went and I talked to them. It turned out to be Skype. And we had this great moment. I had to be in two places at once. Skype at that time was just audio, and there were about 3 million users. This is after we invested before they had anything, but then there were about 3 million users, and I had a board meeting at Skype in Estonia at the same time I had to be in Palo Alto giving a talk to a group of people. And I thought, how am I going to be in two places at once? And so I asked if they had any video conferencing in Estonia, and at that time video was like this. It was hard to, and so I said, yeah, right, same kind of, and so I asked, and Nicholas Enstrom, the founder, said, oh yeah, no problem, we'll do that, no problem. And I said, oh really? And he said, oh yeah, we got plenty of video conferencing here, no problem. And then we did the video conference back to Palo Alto so I could do the board meeting. And I said, how did it go? And the guy at the other end said, oh, perfect. We could see the pores on your skin. Your voice was clear. Everything was great. And I said, oh, that's great. And Nicholas is chuckling to himself. And I said, what? And he said, that was the first Skype video call. and I said, we got a winner here. And he said, not so fast, Tim. We cut off 100,000 simultaneous phone calls to get the bandwidth to get that product done.
So there was a trick behind it.
You entrepreneurs, I know, you'll do whatever it takes to become successful.
I know. Well, you back companies, many companies, as you said before, but Tesla, Uber.
Well, Santos said that before.
Okay. Santos, sorry.
Yeah.
That some of them have been great successes. Can you share the story of one of them and how it happened?
So, yeah, I'll tell you about Tesla. It was kind of fun. I ran into this guy, Ian Wright. He lived nearby, and he was a hobbyist, and he said, hey, I want to I want you to invest in Wright Automotive. And I said, what is it? And he said, well, we sell electric cars. And I thought, really, electric cars? Yeah, electric cars. And I said, well, I thought they were just for tree huggers and golfers. And he said, no, this is different. And he said, come try it out. So I get in this thing. It's got aluminum tubes here and some PVC tubing and a couple of batteries, and that's kind of it, and some seats. And then he said, okay, strap yourself in. And I thought, really, for an electric car? And he goes, yeah, better strap yourself in. So it's one of these straps, you know. Five-point start. So I strapped myself in thinking, this is ridiculous, but I guess he's a safety nut or something.
Put a helmet on.
And then helmet. And then he hits the gas. It's not gas anymore. It's the accelerator.
The pedal.
And wow! And we took off and we got onto 280, which is this very fast road. And we were just moving, and it was unbelievable. And then we did this U-turn, we came back, and he said, watch this. And I was about from here to the front row, and he hits the brake, and the car, we're going 60, 70 miles an hour, and he hits the brake, and the car stops just before the chair. And I thought, whoa, wow, this is different. This is something. And I said, well, what are the sacrifices you make? Well, batteries kind of get overheated sometimes and blow up. Okay, there's a problem. And then he said, well, and the range isn't very far. And I said, okay, well, add more batteries. And then I got interested, and I thought, well, maybe this isn't exactly the right one. Whenever I want to invest in something, I like to go check out the field. And so I went and visited all these other hobbyists, and there was another one, and they were in different phases of their electric car. And then and each one of them it mentioned Tesla. And so I thought, well, I got to find this Tesla guy. And so we found the Tesla guy through somebody who we were working with as a consultant. And the guy's name was Martin Eberhard. And he showed us what he was doing, but there was I didn't have any test drive. But what he had was, he could get more thrust because he had he had lots of small batteries in parallel, and he could juice it all at once, boom. And then he could, if one of them blew up, he could route around it, so you wouldn't have like a big explosion, you'd have a small explosion.
The same concept.
Yeah, and so that was kind of enough to make me feel like, well, that's probably the farthest along, that technology. And so we backed him, and the company took off for a while. We got lots of money in, and then they started running out of money. And that's when Elon Musk came in and said, I'll put in $10 million, but I've got to run it. And that's also when Steve Jurvetson said, I want to join the board. And from there, Elon has this magic touch with people or with governments or whatever. He was able to he got a really great deal on a NUMMI plant. He got a really great deal with the government, a loan. He got funding. He went public. The whole thing, and then he shipped these amazing cars, and they are absolutely extraordinary. And once you get in one of these Teslas, you will never go back to the gas-powered car.
To the old technology.
Yeah, very exciting.
This is an incredible story. Well, as you know, families started the venture industry in the U.S. And something similar is happening here in Mexico, where families are testing the waters, I would say. The government is helping out, is setting up the table so that more people can join, but still there isn't enough, I would say, capacity between all of them, or critical mass, that's the right word. And I see families that start setting up their family offices, and now some of them have backed funds, are doing early stage investments, we see now corporations, Mexican corporations, getting to the play. They're testing the waters with, what is this that you say that is happening out there, innovation? They hear about the Teslas, the Ubers, and the billion-dollar exits, but they don't know how to connect. And we see that for this ecosystem to thrive, really it's important that all of those players become involved, and that they get on the cars, they put their seatbelts on, and they're willing to test things.
You know, they run the risk of becoming the Rust Belt of Mexico, where we had the Rust Belt in the U.S. They run that risk because new technologies are happening, and they're going to have to get on board, and these technologies are changing every single industry. The internet has changed a lot of industries, but every industry is getting converted in some way because we have better information. Computers can do extraordinary things. We are now all very networked. Geographic borders are falling. That's kind of exciting, generally. Some amazing things are happening, and if you're running a family office and you think that it's still okay to just run the business the way it's been run, you know, if you run some business and you've got any inventory, you're probably not running it as well as you should be. If you are running your business and you get paid late, you're probably not running as well as somebody else. There are probably 100 reasons why the family offices should be looking at these entrepreneurs, not just necessarily for funding them, but for also becoming customers of theirs. I think it was brilliant of you guys. I don't know how you figured it out, but you had a family matters thing going on at the same time as you had all these entrepreneurs, and they had to bump into each other somehow. And I think that was really a brilliant idea. I think it's an extraordinary time, I think, for the Mexican family offices, because just by taking that first step, and by the way, the first ones who do fund some of these companies will be surrounded by all the others, so they'll get great information. They'll be able to see all the things that are out there. So I would encourage family offices to take the plunge at least one time and see how it feels. But, diversify. They don't all work. They're not all Uber. So anyway, that's what I think. I think it's a great opportunity for both the entrepreneurs and the family offices to take advantage of this unique point in time where not only will it transform Mexico, but some of these businesses will become global and sort of dominate a field.
The knowledge economy is very real. We see it, and as you say, if our old business models and asset-based businesses don't leapfrog, they will become the Rust Belts of the world.
Yeah.
And you see the consequences.
Yeah. I had an interesting experience because I backed Tesla, and I went back to Detroit, and I spoke in Detroit to a large group, and the group, I opened it up for questions, but only after I said something that went something like this. You guys in Detroit have been living off this automotive, gravy train for 4 generations. It's about time you tried something else. And so go be entrepreneurs. And the first question that comes up is, but if we decide we want to stay in automotive, what would you recommend? So it's like, there's no way they wanted to move out of automotive. And I said, well, Tesla just won the electric car business, so you better make them fly. And I got lambasted. That's a word in English that means just attacked in the press by the presidents of GM and Chrysler and the Ford guy was actually a little more balanced. And the attack said, who is this guy from the Silicon Valley? And then all of a sudden Tesla is just taking more and more market share, and they're taking their high end, which is the profitable business. And then I had an experience where I got to drive in a self-driving car, and this guy came to me after he had made me a bunch of money on Twitch TV. He came to me with this thing called Cruise, and he said, here, let me take you for a ride. So he takes me for a ride, and we're driving kind of between these two lines, and everything's kind of fine, and then we come to an intersection, and the car goes like that, right into the other cars coming at us the other way, you know, almost killing us. And I turned to him and I said, okay, I'll fund it. I did it because I thought, wow, the technology's there, but there's so much more to do. And I thought, wow, this is really, it's unlimited as to what could potentially happen with a self-driving car. Well, 2 years later, General Motors comes back and says, we're buying, you know, they buy Cruise for $1 billion. I think they were listening, even though they were mad. You know, when they get really mad, it's like you hit a nerve. And so now they're leading the charge in self-driving cars. So that's kind of
so entrepreneurs need to hit the nerve of the corporations.
Of the corporations to wake them up.
Wake them up.
Yeah.
That's your goal, guys. Well, just to finish here, because we've been for almost an hour on this break.
I'm surprised you're not all asleep.
So, recommend a book.
Oh, well, my father wrote a fabulous book. It's called The Startup Game by William Draper. And what it does is it gives you the whole relationship between the entrepreneur and the venture capitalist and how it evolved from the very beginning. And he has this optimistic way of writing that I have to go back to that book whenever I get down, because I look at it and I start reading and I go, oh, everything's great. He has a really optimistic way, and I highly recommend that. And if I were to recommend another book to you, it would be almost anything that's science fiction, because it gets your imagination going, and that imagination will be what drives you to take humanity to another place, or take the animals to another place, or maybe we can communicate with the animals. I'm not sure where it takes you, but it'll take you somewhere. So I highly recommend those two things: science fiction and Startup Game by William Draper.
By the way, your father gave me that book and
signed it.
And signed it. It's in Quebec, I think.
Collector's item.
So what you say with that is that imagination is more important than knowledge, and it's
in some ways that's true, because I don't have that much knowledge, but I have Siri.
Okay. Mr. Google is close. I know.
But I mean, it's good to have some knowledge, and memorization is actually good for a lot of things, because you get a base and then you can grow from it. So there are some really good things. So do keep operating that part of your brain, but also work your imagination part. It's and a good way to think about things creatively is to put two things together and see what kind of a business that would be.
Two different things.
Two entirely different things, and say, you know, couch, TV, and then you go, oh, well, that one's an obvious one. You combine the two or whatever. Anyway, it's a good experience. And then brainstorming, where you write down everything everybody says, that encourages real creativity.
And a discovery process.
Yeah. Oh, and share your ideas. Don't hold them back. Don't think that your idea is anything special, because it's like, an idea is like your keys or your wallet. Anytime you hide it, you lose it. You know what I'm talking about.
Well, the best personal habit that has yielded the most in your lifetime?
It's exercise. I'm almost certain, because your team will be awesome most of the time, but there will be times where you just are very frustrated with your team, no matter which side of any argument you come from. And if you get exercise in the morning, it somehow makes everything, the rest of the day go pretty well. So I think I would say exercise more than anything. I'm trying this Whole30 thing, which is you cut out sugar. Apparently, all of these companies have really put a lot of sugar into our diets, and it actually feels pretty good. So sugar and bread, if you can cut those out. Hard to do here. There's some pretty amazing food here.
Well, yeah. What is your best real Mexican food that you have tried?
Okay, so this brings me to Cabo at 2:30 in the morning.
Okay. It's interesting.
And I'm wandering around on the street, and there is a street taco guy right outside of the, what's it called? The Squid Row.
Okay. I've been there. It's a good place to be. David D. Roth owned it.
And this taco might have been the most delicious taco I think I've ever had in my life.
So when you were
There
talking
you go.
disruption, that's why you said the taco stand.
The taco stand, it's still in my head.
Entrepreneurs need to disrupt that business.
I think that taco guy, he came from another planet. It was so good.
We have the opportunity really to live in a very interesting time. The amount of change, and I think that this has been true for every generation, but right now, technology or software, as they say, that is eating the world, it's enabling many, many different things. And every time I see or I hear discussions of entrepreneurs in different cities in the US and in Mexico, they said, this model is broken. So there's kind of a new framework for really fixing this world. And there is a big tension between the people that own and operate the current world and the heroes that are trying to say, that's not the best that we can do. There's something else. And this is what is really driving this tension, is what is really driving this evolution. And I kind of believe that in the Schumpeterian philosophy of creative destruction, that we sometimes need to see things and say, okay, how can we go after these guys and change the rules of the game to create disruptions that could be low-end or new market disruptions that can change the innovation curves, adoption curves, that will replace a previous curve. Do you agree with that?
I think it's fantastic, and absolutely, it's interesting. There is a new vocabulary where people are saying disrupt, transform, change, improve, save the world, change the world. That vocabulary didn't used to be here. Didn't even used to be in the Silicon Valley. It's a global vocabulary. They know startups, they know venture capital, they know that they can really make a big impact. Whereas maybe a generation ago, they felt like, well, the best they can do is go work for one of those people who kind of control the big companies. But you use the word disrupt, and it does disrupt. When you have an Uber, the taxis are going to be thrown to a loop, and those taxi drivers are going to lose their jobs, or they'll get less money in any case, and they're going to figure out how to fight it, and they're going to fight with lawsuits or complaining to the government or ganging up as much as they can against the business. And I've seen it in many of my successful companies. When they become super successful, they become a major threat to an industry. And if you are a major threat to an industry, there are people whose jobs are on the line and whose livelihoods are challenged, even though the customer is a huge beneficiary. So we've had it with Tesla was challenged by the press and those 3 car companies. Skype was challenged by the telecom businesses. They were after them, and we kind of guided them toward going after voice over IP because that was a different technology than ours. Different challenges will come, and you will have all those challenges. When Bitcoin came, the initial reaction is, it's nothing. And then when it becomes something, then the bankers all kind of lined up against it, and then it kept becoming something more, and then the bankers said, ooh, what is this? And then they went and started to complain to the government. The government said, well, I'm not sure. This is kind of a good thing. We'll just let it kind of go. And then the bankers said, well, hey, it's interesting technology. We can actually do remittances this way, and we can do it much cheaper than we do it with our other services. So why don't we use it? So then they kind of got on the bandwagon. You will, if you are an entrepreneur that is really changing things and really you get that many customers, you need to prepare yourself because they will come at you in any way they can. Theranos has been completely attacked. I mean, one writer from the Wall Street Journal has pounded out 43 articles. He's got an axe to grind. I'm not quite sure what it is, but 43 articles over and over and over. And they're all with innuendo and whatever, but he does have a direct link to the competition who is feeding him whatever they want to feed him. And he writes it. So make sure that you're prepared, and if you get attacked like that, you fight back immediately. If you, and particularly if it's a press battle and you're a consumer product. And then be aware that when you get big and you get strong, get big as fast as you possibly can, because if your customers are on your side the way they were with Uber, then you've got a pretty clear path. But if the customers still don't quite know why you're out there and why they're different, then you have a much bigger challenge. So I guess that would be sort of an idea of what to expect when you're a disruptor.
Yeah, it's a hard job.
Oh, and one more thing. Now that geographic borders are falling, and we have these new technologies, Bitcoin, the blockchain, governments, and we can move. We can go from one country to another. We can go, if one country is better for us or for our business or for our lifestyle, we'll go to a different country. Governments now are in competition for us or in co-opetition for us. They go from, kind of telling you what the rules of the land are to asking what you want, the way a customer would. So I think governments have an opportunity now to open up, and we've had a really interesting experience there. The Prime Minister of Estonia came to Draper University, and he said, just by instituting digital signatures, we saved 2% of our GDP. And by using digital voting, all the young people started to vote. Surprise, the young people don't like those creepy booths. And then by using digital identity, our crime rate went down and our business climate went up. So then they created this, and I'm a virtual resident now of Estonia. They created a virtual residency. They're thinking in terms of, hey, we can be the government for lots of people. They don't have to actually reside here. Government doesn't have to just be geographical. It can be an open global opportunity. And so a really great government will attract a new kind of resident and citizen. And you see how some of the bad governments, Egypt, Tunisia, Ukraine, all get overthrown by social media. So technology is changing the way governments act and think. And they're thinking, what can I do for you? And hopefully that ends up pervading the entire world, because it'll create a very free and happy and healthy world.
Very
peaceful.
Well, we need to get back to work. And yeah. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that need our help. So
there is.
Any last word that you want to say to the audience before we leave?
No rest for a hero.
Okay.